If you look at the pyramids and you look at some of the structures in Egypt and all that stuff in northern Africa, what those people were doing is unexplainable even today. I don't give a what I've read every theory on how they built those pyramids. The Great Pyramid of Giza has 2,300,000 stones in it. Some of them are they weigh between 2 and 80 tons. Some of them are caught from a quarry that's hundreds of miles away. These things that pyramid is shaped perfectly. Like if you fucked up like a quarter inch there, a half inch here, by the time you get to the top, that thing's a mess. But meanwhile, it's not. It's perfect. It's also perfectly aligned to true north, south, east, and west. And they're not really sure how old it is. They think they date it to 2,500 BC, but that's just because of organic particles that they pulled from inside stones. But they also say that they probably could have sealed those stones and resealed those stones over time. You're dealing with like a gigantic mystery of unfathomable proportion.
That's crazy.
I always wanted to ask about their concept of propulsion. That almost like space would be flat, you would fold space over, and you would intersect those 2 points, and you would be able to travel vast distances instantaneously, right? I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it, I'm sure. But is that a concept that people have actually considered?
Yeah, you can, in general relativity. So Einstein's, I should say what it is, Einstein's theory of general relativity is our best theory of space and time. And so it really is, as we talked about before, it's you imagine space and time as a sheet. Just imagine it as a thing, sort of literally a sheet, a surface. And all the theory says is that if you put matter and or energy into that, then it curves it and distorts it, and it can stretch it and make it shrink. And so it's the response of space and time to matter and energy. So the simplest version will be the sun. So you put a big spherical ball of stuff in there, and it warps space and time such that the nice straight lines, something just travelling, minding its own business through that warp space, turns into an orbit.
And that's why you can actually kind of see things that are behind the sun?
Yeah.
Okay.
So light bends around the sun because it's just travelling through the curved space. The Earth goes round the sun because it's just rolling, minding its own business through the curved space.
Honestly, when I first went to Egypt with John Anthony West in 1990, I thought before I got off the plane that this would be simple open and shut case. I would prove him wrong in the sense of his assertions that maybe the Sphinx was older. I had no doubt at the time that my colleagues in Egyptology must know what they're talking about, and all of that changed literally within 30, without exaggerating, 30 to 120 seconds of first seeing the Sphinx. Yeah, it really did.
What was your first impression?
Because my first impression of the Sphinx was, now that I saw it on the ground in person, there was something wrong with the Egyptological dating. Because when you look at the Sphinx, as a geologist with a geological eye, this was not weathered by wind and sand. This was not desert erosion and weathering that I saw on the Sphinx, the body of the Sphinx, which is very difficult to tell because it's been heavily repaired and reworked, but particularly on the walls of what are known as the Sphinx enclosure. The Sphinx enclosure is important because it preserves a lot of the details. And if you look at the evidence, and that's really where I was coming from. But my point is that even in the late 1980s, early 1990s, when I first got involved with this, if I looked at it critically, the evidence was not that definitive for the age of the Sphinx.
What's the thought process behind this? Is it legit? Because a lot of people are like, finding Hitler, get the fuck out of here. They found Hitler, he died.
Yeah, I mean,
not really.
We don't know,
right?
That's. I mean, this isn't like Ancient Aliens. This is They declassified a bunch of documents. Both the Israelis, the British, and the Germans and Americans in the past 20 years have been consistently declassifying documents. And there were a bunch of specifically FBI documents that we were spending millions and millions of dollars actively searching for Hitler after the war.
Really?
Yeah, like millions of dollars. Like Hoover was like, no, send more FBI agents to South America, to North Africa, go to the Canary Islands, go to Spain, trying to find out where this guy went. Tons of real FBI documents with real leads, with real informants some or some first eye accounts saying that they physically. So, anyways, that's the show. Is us trying to find out, sift through reality and the fiction of the allure, the mystery of that asshole.
So what's the official story? The official story is that he killed himself, right?
Yep.
He killed himself in the bunker with
Yeah.
Ava Braun.
Yep.
And is there any photographic evidence of his death or anything?
Yeah. So what the Russians got the body and they got his skull. And when they brought it back to Moscow, nobody has ever been able to independently verify who and what this body is. They let one genetic test occur, and the body with the bullet holes that they said was Hitler, and have said, and that's the narrative, that's the story, that's all the eyewitness accounts that are even in the vicinity of collaborating with each other and corroborating each other's testimony. Like the closest version, because none of it seems to be very accurate, is that, okay, here's Hitler's skull, and when they did the genetic testing, it's that of a 35-year-old woman. So like, oh, well, this isn't Hitler, but they've said for the past 80 years that this is Hitler. So, okay.
Have you been to Egypt?
No, I haven't been there yet.
Dude,
I heard it's insane.
I climbed to the center of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah?
Fucking wild energy in there.
Oh, I can imagine.
Fucking vibrating, like, ooh.
Really?
It's fucking
like
weird.
You feel it?
Yeah.
Or is it just like
no, you feel it.
You're
You can
freaking
almost,
out because
you
you're
can-
there?
No, you can almost hear it.
Really?
It's like this weird energy in there, yeah. It doesn't feel like it doesn't put off like a bad vibe or anything. It just feels like electric in there. It's like, what is this, a fucking power station?
What is it?
I don't know. They say it's a tomb.
Yeah, but that's not real.
That can't be real.
I don't think that's real. I have many friends that have gone there and said it changed the way they look at the world. It changed the way they look at humans.
Really?
Yeah, because you think of people, who knows how many thousands of years ago, it's 4,500 plus years ago, who created these things. Like, what was life like back then? What did they do? How did they do this? How did they get these stones from hundreds of miles away and perfectly cut them and make these insane structures? You can't even get a razor blade in between them. I mean, incredible construction. Back when people had just come out of hunter and gathering. I mean, it was like 5,000 plus years ago they were doing this. Like,
Yeah.
how?
Right.
How long did it take? Who's in charge? How'd you figure it out? They don't know. They really don't know. And then due to the burning of the Library of Alexandria, there's like so much missing information in history. Yeah, this is the thoughts about Egypt, correct?
It's about Egypt
Yeah.
and about other things. I mean, the specific example I give is above the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid are 5 further chambers. And these chambers are roofed and floored with granite beams that weigh about 70 tons each. And there are hundreds of them. And these 70-ton granite beams, which to put in context, a 70-ton beam is equivalent in weight to 35 large SUVs. These 70-ton granite beams have been elevated to a height of more than 350 feet above the ground and carefully and precisely placed in position. It is very hard for archaeologists to explain how that was done using purely leverage and mechanical advantage. You can say, oh, perhaps they built a ramp and hauled the stones up the ramp. But then you have to confront basic laws of physics. You can't haul a stone weighing tens of tons up a slope that exceeds 10 degrees. Then you start doing the calculation. How long a ramp do I need with a 10-degree slope to get to 350 feet above the ground? And the answer is you need a fucking long ramp, which should still be there, because it couldn't have been a sand ramp. It would have collapsed under the weight of those stones. It had to be as massive as the pyramid itself.